guys. Welcome back to Bare Naked Meditations / Bare Naked Conversations, because that's what we're doing. We're having a conversation. And we're going to round it out with a meditation, but we're going to start off with the conversation. But I'll always link the timestamp in the comments or at the in the description of the video, so that if you want to skip ahead to the meditation, feel free. So I told you guys I was going to try to be more consistent with my videos and with my content. So that's what I'm doing. This topic has been something I've been working with and maneuvering through for a while. We're going to be talking about shadow work. So I got introduced to shadow work in therapy. I had heard about it before, but I had never really dived in and really did any research or had any real understanding of what it really was about. Before I dive into my journey with shadow work and what it is and everything. So today is September 17th. You're probably watching this whenever, but I'm recording this on September 17th. And today is the Pisces full moon. I have a Sag sun and a Pisces moon. So the moon is in my moon sign. Like, I feel the moon in Pisces. Pisces is a very emotional, emotion-driven sign. My emotions have been fluctuating. Not in a bad way, not anything like too far out. I've just been able to feel it. And so I was like, yeah. And I've been watching little things and listening to little things that have brought up my my experience and different thoughts on like shadow work. And I'm like, what a better time to have a conversation about shadow work than when the full moon is in Pisces and the moon controls the ocean and all that. So it's like perfect timing. So here we are talking about shadow work. The definition, it's a term coined by a psychoanalyst, Carl Jung. He coined the term shadow work and the shadow self. Is a psychological practice that involves exploring the parts of ourselves that we repress or ignore, and we often call those parts of ourselves our shadow self. So that's, the working definition of what shadow work is. My interpretation of shadow work, or how I look at it, because I like to look at things in like metaphorical ways. Like when I think about life, I like legit picture myself on like a road, and it's a windy road, and there's like pit stops and different things happening. When I think about shadow work or my shadow self, I think of the ocean. Like I mentioned, I'm a Sag sun. I'm a Sagittarius sun. I'm heavy into astrology, so if that's not your thing, cool. But it's my thing, and so I'm gonna talk about it. But as a Sagittarius, like one of the things I always say is like the surface level stuff bores me to death. Like, baby, let's dive deep. Let's dive into it. I want to go deep. Like that's just something about me. And so when I think about the shadow self, I think about the ocean, and I think about the depths of the ocean. Like the surface level to me is, it's just that, it's the surface. It's if the sun, the way I envision it is like the sun is out, you're floating there at the top of the ocean, and you're just laid back, and there's not so much happening at the top, right? But as you dive deep, as you go deep down into the ocean, it gets dark. The light disappears, and it's cold, and it's pressure. The deeper you go down, the heavier the pressure. The stuff that lurks down there, it's like, fish and marine life that we have no idea about, that never come to the surface. And it's really kind of just this mysterious, dark place. Low-key terrifying. I say this because when I think about shadow work, it's funny how I feel like it relates kind of like to humanity. How like we kind of just do surface level stuff. Like we don't care to kind of dive deep. Like we know about like 5% of the ocean. You know, we've only explored like 5% of the ocean, whereas we're like looking to space, to go into outer space and do all this stuff, and it's like we don't even know what's going on right here, you know. But that's another another conversation for another time. In my opinion, it's important to get to know what's down there in that ocean, lurking in the depths, in the deep dark. You know, I think you can't really get to know anything else until you've gotten to know yourself. So even as it relates to humanity, it's like we need to kind of figure out what's going on here and how to help what's going on here before we start thinking about anything else. Another reason why I think shadow work is so important too is because, you know, as humans, like we desire a relationship, whether it be familial or friendship or romantic partnerships. You know, we desire to have relationships with people, and so there's this saying, like, you can only meet people as deeply as you've met yourself. So that when you are meeting someone else, when you are building relationship with others, you can meet them deeply. Now, granted, they also have to be willing to meet themselves on a deeper level too, so that you can be on the same wavelength. But you know, you can only fix yourself. So you got to start with you. And so I think it's important, not just for you and for yourself, but also in building relationships with others. So that's a little about shadow work and what it is. And I want to take a second before I really get into like how I've experienced shadow work and my experience with it, to go back to bare naked meditations. Bare naked meditations started as Bare Naked Mondays. And Bare Naked Mondays was something that I did on Facebook back in, and it's honestly, when I think about it, it's been about 10 years now since I did my first Bare Naked Mondays video. And it was just something that God kind of put on my heart to do just one day. Me and my best friend, we did these little videos where we would record ourselves and we would just be talking about different topics. And I was like, you know, I have things on my heart I want to talk about, so I'm gonna just do this thing on Facebook. And I got on Facebook and I recorded a video. I can't remember if it was a live, if there was lives back then. It's like 2014, but I put the video on Facebook, and it was just me talking about where I was in life, and I was telling people if you can relate, make your own videos, and it got a really good like reception. Like people received it really well, and I kept it going for a little while. But in true Sagittarius nature, I did not follow through with it, and so but the theme of sharing my story, and bare naked, that theme has followed me. It went from the Facebook videos to a blog to a podcast that I did with a friend where we touched on different things, to now here where, you know, I engage in these conversations about topics and meditations. I think it's important, the theme of bare naked, it's important to me to highlight, like, it has nothing to do with, you know, being naked physically, but it's really about being naked emotionally and spiritually and on a deeper level. When I look around at the world today, it's like I just see a lot of people trying to like assimilate and look like everybody else and do what everybody else is doing. And it's not that I don't think that people are beautiful, or things like that. I just see people wearing these masks and putting on all these things to cover up who they really are. And while I wear makeup, I intentionally try to be pretty clear and bare when I come on to do these videos, because that's the point. But I do wear makeup. I don't knock people for wearing makeup or doing whatever they do. I just think it's important that you're okay with what's underneath, whether it's, if you're wearing makeup, if you're wearing wigs, if you're getting surgeries, if you're doing whatever, that's fine. Do what makes you happy, but be okay with what's underneath. So Bare Naked Meditations, Bare Naked Mondays, Bare Naked Conversations is all based around the idea of that, stripping down to who you really are. Being on a surface level is cool. Listen, ain't nothing wrong with the surface level. I think honestly you need both. You need that duality. You need, to come up for air. But you also got to make peace with what lies beneath. But going into my journey with shadow work and my experience with shadow work, child, woo child, my God today is as my guy Craig the writer Stewart would say, my God today. After my divorce, or while I was going through my divorce, I started therapy. And I found a Black therapist, a Black woman therapist. And Black people, get you a Black therapist. Not that, white therapists don't have good intentions when they're sitting down with you. And it's not like they can't help you. But it's something about a Black person who has a shared experience with you. When I talk to my therapist, we see each other in a different way. Whereas previous therapists, who have been white or another race, they can understand, but there's limits, to their understanding, just because they haven't had those experiences. So it's something when you can share a level of life experience with your therapist. And then when I got into therapy, as I sat down with her and I was expressing different things, she introduced to me shadow work. And one of the methods she taught me was tapping. And with tapping, it's like you're meditating, but as you're meditating, you are tapping each side of your body. You can do like your arms or your legs or wherever, but you're slowly tapping each side of your body. And in doing that, you are awakening both sides of your brain, so that while you're meditating, while you're trying to go back and, because our meditations we were doing, it was like, think about a memory. And so if you're activating both parts of your brain, if they're both activated, your memories are kind of able to come to you better. It was my first time really diving deep into like the root of the things, going as I described it, like diving into the ocean, going past the light, where you can see the light, like going into the dark of it all. And child, what lies beneath, it's like it's there, it's there, but you ignore it or don't think about it so long that it's kind of surprising, but then not at the same time. It's like, oh yeah, you do exist, you are here. What came up for me a lot in therapy and through my shadow work was this theme of shame. Woo, shame had me in a chokehold, baby. Like I could not get out. And there's that saying, like, if you want to get rid of a weed, you gotta pull it from the root. So that shadow work was like important, like me just continuously going back to kind of like not even address, but just to identify, okay, this is what it is, and to sit with it. Because the thing about shadow work, it's not like you go to the depths and you slay the dragon or anything. It really is a practice of sitting there, learning to understand, and not just understand, but have empathy for yourself and compassion for yourself. So, sidebar, I'm writing a book. I've been writing this book for a long time. This book has went through so many different like iterations, but eventually y'all gonna get this book. I'm still working on it though. But one of the things that I touch on in my book is breaking generational curses and what that looks like for me and my family. I have 3 parents. Let's start there. I have 3 parents. I have my mother, my biological mother. I have my father, my biological father, and then I have my father's wife, who I refer to as my mother. My biological mother was and still is a heroin addict, and so she wasn't able to raise me. And so my father, who, if you can do the math, cheated on his wife. And once, things went left with like my biological mom, and it was made clear that she couldn't raise me, my dad had to go home and let his wife know, I got this baby out here, and if I don't want her to go into the system, I have to get her. And my mother, being the saint that she was, said 3 words to him that changed the course of my life. And those 3 words were, go get her. I'm sure she said a whole bunch of other words to him. Because listen, baby, she wasn't no slouch. She was a Virgo and a firecracker, okay? Real big stepper. But after she said whatever she had to say to him, and, they did what they did, she said, go get her. And he came and got me. I was 6 weeks old, so though that was all I knew, was her and him, as my mother and father. Granted, as I grew up, my biological mom was always around. She was someone in the neighborhood, and my parents never hid it from me. It's like, that's your biological mom. So it was a very weird, situation for a child to like understanding, because I didn't feel unloved by my mother who raised me. I never felt like that wasn't she was my mother. The only thing was that I knew that she wasn't really my mom, and that she was older, because my dad was older, and so and his wife, my mother, was old. They were older. They were out of the baby making age. Well, she was. They were grandparents, at the time when I was born. And so it was just, that energy of, as a kid, you don't understand why this person who is your biological mom, and we look alike. Like, my biological mom, all her kids, she has very strong genes. We all look just alike. And so it's like, you look like me. Why aren't you raising me? You're young, you're able-bodied. In my mind, that was what I thought. But of course, after I grew up, I'm like, she couldn't take care of herself, let alone take care of me. But my little kid self did not understand that. And so to even just think from that alone, the shame and the abandonment that a kid feels, which I didn't really pay attention to when I was younger, because I had a mother and I felt loved. So I never really kind of address those feelings that I had in the back of my mind about like, but that's my biological mom, and she's not, she doesn't seem to want me. But when I think about breaking generational curses, my two parents both dealt with addiction in their own different ways. My father, more money, power, women, and my mother, physical addiction to a drug. You bring them together and you get me, who, when I was born, I was physically dependent on drugs. My mother used drugs while she was pregnant. And so she innately passed on to me addiction issues. And so I struggle with addiction and have my whole life. And it hasn't been drugs and things like that necessarily. But like I notice within myself, I can get addicted to anything, a person. If I like something a lot, I just want to keep doing it. When I think about breaking generational curses, especially for me and my lineage and my family, I think about the addictions passed down to me, that idea of addiction and what addiction is and what it symbolizes. So like when I look at my parents, I look at two people or three people that were running from something. Doing those things is usually you're trying to avoid something. When you're using drugs or you're drinking or you're having sex or whatever, it's usually a way to escape. And so once I kind of sat with myself with that, understood like my own escapism and that, like, wanting to escape, I was able to look at my parents and think of them and like, well, what were they trying to escape? What were they running from? And so in my book, getting back to that, I talk about this running from something, this running from this monster. And for me and my lineage, breaking a generational curse looks like me being the one to be like, okay, I'm not running no more. And once I stop running and I turn around and look at what was chasing me, this monster I'm terrified of, it's like, lo and behold, the monster is me. And that idea of like you're running from something, but really you're just running from yourself. And if you stop long enough and turn around and face it, you'll realize that it's not this monster that's out to like do you in or do you dirty. It's really a part of you that you need to address and you need to sit down with. And so for me, that's the work I do in my life. That's how I try to parent different things, is this idea of stopping and sitting down with it, and facing the things that had me running at one point and that may, have my parents or, have them running. A lot of the shadow self is your inner child. A lot of it is those things we learned in childhood, those experiences we had in childhood or young adulthood. So when you're dealing with your shadow self, from my experience, a lot of the times you're dealing with a younger version of you. Something that came up a lot through my shadow work was shame. Shame was a constant theme that I could not get out of. It took me back to being a kid, growing up heavily in the church. We were in the church more days than we were not out of the week. And so I don't knock the church or, Christianity. I don't subscribe to religion anymore, but it's not because I have a disdain necessarily for it. It's just, it can be harmful, especially I feel like to young women. Just because of our society, it's very patriarchal, and there can be a level of that in the church. And just I feel like a lack of care for, women, and that didn't sit right with me. And anyway, that's where a lot of the shame came from, because being raised up in a church, being taught, well, this is good, this is bad. very black and white, very, no gray area, no room for gray area. So when I was about 12, my mom got sick. My mom, who raised me, she got sick with cancer, lung cancer. She declined, was put on hospice, and eventually passed away in our home. My dad brought her home from the hospital. She passed away at home. I was 13 when she got really sick, and I was 14 when she passed away. She passed away a couple days before my 15th birthday, and my mom was not only like the nurturer, but she was the disciplinary too. She was the person that created the boundaries, that set the tone. Like, my dad was doing his own thing most of the time, and he was there, he was present, but as far as like the parentship went, it was my mom. And so when I lost her, I lost that structure. I lost those boundaries. And so I hopped off the porch, baby, with no seatbelt. Like, I just went all out. And the one thing about growing up in the church in the way that I did, I was very much speak when spoken to, very, do as I say, in that energy. And I'm not saying that they were like always harsh or anything, but that was just very much the energy. And my mom never talked to me about sex and drugs and certain things. And so as a preteen, grieving, going through, these hormonal changes in my body, but also going through this major change within my home, losing my mother, and what that was doing to me at the time, I didn't realize it. I'm just thinking, I'm just having fun. And it was like, no, girl, you are running. You are running from grief. You're running from what's going on, your reality. And I didn't have any grown up at that time to tell me it's going to be okay. This is what's happening. I just felt like, oh, I'm just having fun. While also having this fun, I'm doing things that I know aren't good. So in my eyes, if you're not good, then you're bad. That's what I was taught. And so I just subconsciously came up with this idea that, I'm bad. And it wasn't like a conscious thought, it was just a feeling that I wasn't good and I wasn't worthy, because I started to make certain decisions and certain choices, and that took me out of the worthy category. And over the years, it played out in me just accepting anything from anybody, not thinking that I deserve certain things, being self-sabotaging, and being addicted, having addictions to different things, and not treating myself well, and allowing others to not treat me well. And that went on for a long time. Fast forward to, present day, when I'm going through therapy and I'm working through all these things, I'm able to identify, oh, that's where that started. That started for me when my mom died. I started to look at myself as like not being worthy, because I started making different decisions. But that little girl that was making those decisions was doing the best she could with what she had. So instead of having like this judgmental mindset on my younger self, I had to sit with her and have compassion for her, and what she needed and what she didn't get, and the choices that she made. Again, I was doing the best I could with what I had. And that also helped me to have compassion with my parents, and decisions that they made, and them, and how we interacted. And so having compassion is, they were doing the best they could with what they had to. A lot of times, unlearning the things that we've learned, that got us to adulthood, breaking those things down takes some time. So no, I won't be in this, oh my God, I'm healing, woe is me type of energy. And I don't like the woe is me energy, but just in this healing space, I'm healing, I'm doing all this work on myself. I don't think I'll be there forever. But I also realize that, that self-care and like doing the work on yourself, it really isn't like a destination. It really isn't like an end point. It's kind of like, I can't remember who said it, but it's kind of like a dance. It's like something you learn to kind of master and do, but it's a constant practice of it. It's not like one day you wake up and you don't have to do it anymore. And so that's kind of how I look at it. But I've definitely come a long way, and the things that used to haunt me or chase me, I don't feel like they're chasing me anymore. And so I say that's a plus. There's light. There's definitely light, and we're gonna definitely weave in, the light, the light, the joy, the laughter. I think all of that is important, and I want to share all of that with you guys because my life is not just shadow work, but grief and shadow work and those things I think is important to talk about and highlight and let you guys just know, my journey on it and in my experiences, in hopes that my experiences and my journey can help somebody, and maybe if it can't, like help you necessarily, maybe it can just help you to not feel alone in whatever you're going through. My prayer is that, this video and these conversations reach who they need to reach. So that's it. That's my journey, my experience with shadow work and my shadow self. Book is coming soon. I'm gonna get it done. But now let's get into the meditation. Okay. So now I want you to find a comfortable position in a quiet space, wherever you are. Take your time. You can pause the video and come back once you've gotten settled. And once you're ready, you can sit any way you want, whether it be crisscross applesauce, in a chair with your feet planted on the floor, or if you're in bed, just try to sit up and have your back straight. But we're gonna start now by closing our eyes and taking 3 deep breaths. So we're gonna inhale. Okay. Inhale. And release. Last one. Inhale. And release. Now I want you to imagine yourself floating in the ocean. Imagine this ocean being vast and large and wide. You're deep in the middle. You can't see land anywhere. It's just you floating in the ocean. You're laying on your back. And I want you to trust yourself, your imagination, and whatever comes to mind. As you're lying on your back, floating in the ocean, think to yourself, is it daylight? Is it cloudy? Is the sun shining bright? Is it nighttime? Is the moon out? And whatever comes to mind, whatever feels right to you, go with it. Trust yourself. You know the way. Imagine yourself lying here and really immerse yourself into this imagination. Is there a breeze? Is it cool? Is it a hot summer day? What does it smell like? Can you smell the salt water? Is the water cold? Sit with it, how the ocean and this ocean feels to you. We're gonna go back to our breaths. We're gonna take 3 deep breaths again. And when you inhale, your stomach should expand fully. We're gonna hold at the top and then release. So our first deep breath. Inhale. Hold at the top and release. Inhale. Hold at the top. Release. And last one, inhale. Hold at the top. And release. Now I want you to imagine that you turn over and now you are diving. You are diving deep into the ocean now. You're swimming. Imagine yourself as you swim deeper and deeper into this ocean. Imagine the light going away slowly as you swim. And you keep swimming until the light is out of sight, is gone. You are completely in the dark depths of the ocean. Once you're here in this dark, deep of the ocean, I want you to allow your imagination to have its way. Sit here in this space, in this darkness, and allow what comes to mind, your first thought or your first memory that arises. I want you to, again, sit with whatever comes to mind here. Trust your imagination, allow it to flow, and take a few moments here. If your mind drifts off, if thoughts arise, return yourself to the moment with your breath. Focus on your breathing and on the first thought or memory that came to mind here in the depths for you. you to take 3 deep breaths. Inhale, hold at the top, and release. Inhale, hold at the top, and release. Last one, inhale. Hold at the top and release. Now imagine yourself swimming back to the surface. As you're flowing to the top, the light comes in. It starts off small, and as you swim, it gets brighter and brighter until you reach the surface. And as you come up out of the water, you are able to breathe, feel the air. Take a deep breath here and come back to the present moment. Slowly allow yourself to become present. You can move shoulders, wiggle your hands and toes. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Take a moment to thank yourself for this experience right now. Have gratitude to yourself for being willing to do this work. I want to thank you for being here, for joining in. If you listen to the conversation or not, if you just were here for the meditation, thank you. I am in gratitude. And I'm not a licensed therapist or social worker or anything. So if you feel this energy is too heavy, or if there's things on your mind, please feel free to seek out help. You can call the National Crisis Hotline. They also have a website where you can chat online with them at nhm.gov. Please feel free to seek out therapists in your area, wherever you may live. If you feel like you need to talk to someone, if you feel like you need someone to do this work with, please reach out. There are resources and there are help. Again, I want to thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining into this meditation. And I will see you guys next time. As always,